back to week 2 of our summer term. I hope you had an enjoyable and most importantly a restful weekend, and that you enjoyed some time together, hopefully away from screens, because we're obviously going to be back on them a lot this week. I just want to say thank you to all of you, all of our community, for working so resolutely and so brilliantly last week. I think we had some major highlights and some real successes, but I also know that technical challenges were presenting themselves. I expected that would be the case. We spoke about it, didn't we, when we came back at the beginning of term, but nevertheless, everyone has really risen to the challenge, and I have been thoroughly impressed. And I know I've said it on many occasions, but I truly mean it. I could not be any prouder of the collective team that we have here at Duncombe. So well done to you, and a big thank you to all of you who sent in some pictures around the golden rules. I really enjoyed looking at those. So well done and thank you, and I hope that you enjoy having a little look at them with me as well. I wonder, did you work out the hero, the sporting hero that I said I was going to talk to you about today? Remember, I said that this hero was more than just a sporting hero, and that they had lived closer to our time than William Wilberforce, but not a modern sporting hero. Well, you could be forgiven if you didn't guess this particular individual's name, because frankly, it's been a while since he's been a sporting hero that's spoken about a lot. But this gentleman, who I'm going to speak to you about, has had many films made about him. One was called Chariots of Fire. The other was called Wings of Eagle, which was more recent and came out in 2016. Still guessing? Don't worry, I'll show you. The gentleman I'm going to speak to you about today is a man called Eric Liddell. He was often referred to as the Flying Scotsman. In fact, actually, this book that I've got here, a biography of his life by a lady called Sally Magnuson, who's a TV presenter and journalist, talks about Eric Liddell's life. And I believe that there are two things that really stand out in his life that I want to talk to you about today. Now, the first one was really immortalised in film, in a very famous film made in the early 1980s called Chariots of Fire. And I imagine even if you haven't seen the film, you'll probably know the theme tune from it. It was extremely well known sound, often used against images of people running really fast but in slow motion, because that's a lot of what the film did. And whilst the Chariots of Fire was around more than just the life of Eric Liddell, a big part of that plot was about this gentleman who was an exceptionally fast runner. So fast, in fact, that he had the record number of tries, because not only was he a great athlete for running, he was also a great rugby player, and he played on the wing for Scotland, and he ran lots of tries in a single match against England in the Calcutta Cup in the early 1920s. He was a very capable sportsman, and he went off to the Olympics with a very real chance of winning the 100 metres gold. And then, in arriving in Paris in 1924, Eric Liddell found out that his first race would be on a Sunday. Now, it's important to know that Eric was a very devout Christian. He had spoken to big crowds about his faith in Jesus on many, many occasions, and he believed that it was wrong for him to run on a Sunday. And so he went and told the Olympic Committee that he would be unable to run. And I think it's fair to say that they were not very happy with him. They believed that he should run on a Sunday, and that would be okay. But for Eric, this wasn't okay. The pressure that was put on Eric was quite significant, and in fact, he was invited to go and speak to the Prince of Wales, who would later become King Edward VIII. And the Prince of Wales tried to persuade Eric that actually it was important for him to run because it was his patriotic duty. And whilst Eric wanted to run, in fact, he had trained for a number of years and really was very, very confident that he could win the gold medal for the 100 metres. He just simply was not prepared to give up on what he believed was a really important way of honouring his faith in God. But a man called Lord Andrew Lindsay, who had just run earlier in the Olympics and won a bronze medal, gave up his place in the 400 metres. And so Eric had the opportunity to show the world just how fast a runner he really was.
It says in the old book, "He that honours me, I will honour." Good luck, Jackson Shores. So where does the power come from to see the race to its end from within? Jenny, I believe God made me for a purpose. But he also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure.
So Eric ran in that race, and he ran so fast, and he ran so well, and he had a very unique way of running. You might see in this picture here, he had a way of throwing his head back and looking up to the sky. It was a very distinctive style, and he won the Olympic gold medal for 400 metres. He also went on to win a bronze for 200 metres a few days later. He was heralded as a hero along with the other winners of medals at the Olympics. And in fact, Prince of Wales, he commented later on how impressed he had been with Eric's commitment and faith in the face of quite considerable pressure. But that's actually not why I think Eric stands out as a major hero. I think it's his later life that really stands Eric as someone like Wilberforce, who is a role model and example to us all. Because following the Olympics, Eric and his family, his sisters and brothers, they were missionaries, and they went over to China, who at the time needed a lot of help. And whilst he was there, Eric and his family set up a hospital, and they also set up a school. And in fact, he trained as a teacher and ended up running the different schools that they set up to help the families in those areas of China where they were. And everything was going really, really well. And then the Second World War began. And very quickly, Japan invaded China, and anybody who was a foreign national, I mean anybody who wasn't from China originally, were gathered up and they were placed in prison camps. And the news of Eric Liddell being in a prison camp, this famous runner, this wonderful missionary who was really well known, got back to Britain, and Winston Churchill himself intervened, and he arranged that Eric Liddell would be released and sent back home to the relative safety of Britain. News was being brought to Eric Liddell that he was going to be set free. The guards were on their way to him when he got into a conversation with a young man who was really sad And when Eric asked him why he was sad, he explained that his wife was due to have a baby and he was desperately worried that he might not ever get to see his family or his wife or his new child again. When Eric got the news that he was going to be released, he refused it. And he said, "I want this man to take my place." He defied the order from Churchill that he should leave. Now, the Japanese authorities agreed that this young man could leave, and he did get to return home to his wife and see his new child. And Eric stayed in prison. So why did Eric choose to stay behind? Surely he wanted to get back home to the relative safety of Britain. Why did he do that? Why did he give up his own freedom and risk his own personal safety for the sake of someone he barely knew? Well, I think it's the same thing that made him defy an order from his king to run. I think it's the same thing that led Wilberforce, the man we spoke about before, not to give up. I think it's this sense of calling, something inside which just calls to Eric and says to him, that's not the right thing, this is the right thing. Now, it might seem that someone like Wilberforce or Eric, they're rare, they barely exist. We don't see that very often. And I think probably to a certain extent that might be true, but I've been thinking a lot about this idea of being a hero. And I think it is about doing the right thing in the face of very significant personal cost. And I don't think we've ever had in recent years a better example of the men and women, countless numbers, up and down this land, who are going in to work, particularly in care roles and in the NHS, putting their own safety behind the needs of others. Why do they do that? I'll tell you why. Because it's something inside that's a calling that tells them that that's the right thing to do. And I think that's quite remarkable. And I think that their exploits now will be remembered for many, many years to come as truly heroic. What a great example these men and women are setting. And do you know what? Some of them might even be watching right now. They might even be watching right now. What a great example. So there we have Wilberforce, a hero who has this calling, and even though it costs him personally in so many different ways, he doesn't give up. And then we have Eric Liddell, who would forfeit the chance to run that he'd trained for, and then forfeits his freedom. In fact, eventually he did pass away whilst in prison, and he never got back to Britain. He gave that up. Why? Because of this calling that was burning inside. And there we have men and women across this land who are doing their utmost, putting themselves and their own needs behind the needs of other people, some of whom they've never met before and are unlikely to ever meet again. Why is that? Because of that amazing calling that they have inside. Isn't that a brilliant human quality for us to observe and to think about for ourselves and to be inspired by? So being a hero isn't something that people think about. They don't choose, I'll be a hero today. It's something that happens inside them. And I think that we can all take something away from that, not just the stories of Eric Liddell, William Wilberforce, but the stories, the very now live stories that are going on all around us in this country. I'm going to read the Lord's Prayer, so I'd like you to put your hands together and close your eyes. And if you'd like to join me, I'll read that now. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Lovely. So all it takes for me now is to say, have a lovely Monday and the rest of the week. Keep working hard. Do remember to keep that patience with technology, because sometimes tech does let us down, particularly when everybody's trying to use it all around the world. So have some patience if it doesn't quite work straight away. It will get sorted. It will come online. Everything does seem to right itself eventually. Thanks for all your hard work. Keep it going. I couldn't be prouder of all of you. Have a lovely week, and I'll look forward to seeing you all on Friday for our assembly then. Bye now.